Okay, so this is the last diary log for the music video production. So this is just basically going to be an overall kind of summary of what went on and how everything went. So I was the director, and my target audience for the music video was quite broad, I would say. I was kind of targeting either the people who grew up listening to Queen, which obviously that song came out in the 1980s, so people there who are Queen fanatics, but also millennials who's also heard of Queen, heard the song, and a lot of people would have because of just how popular they were, and they were interested in seeing like a new way of like it being represented. Before I started filming, in my pitch I said that I was going to try to create an impressionist, so each person that watches the video would have a different meaning to every person. So yeah, I feel like that was my goal. I don't think that really worked. In the end, it didn't really have a meaning. It was really just a typical rock video. Obviously, we didn't get all the abstract videos that we wanted in the beginning. The abstract videos were one of the main parts of the video, so obviously it did take away one of the main things that was going to make it be as it was. Like the abstract videos were supposed to make it disorientating and different and weird and confusing, but obviously since we didn't have those that kind of didn't work at all, and that's why it turned out just to be a normal rock video. In my job role, I was a director, obviously, and I would say that I didn't have difficulty with a lot of things. I'd say I was quite organised. I knew what I wanted. I think the problem with me would be that I knew what I wanted and I wasn't really willing to change it. Like with the location, I found it, I liked it, I was adamant. So I was like, no, I'm not changing it, which obviously made it difficult. Getting all the equipment there, getting the actors there, getting my crew there. But so I completed all of the work that was set up in the brief, which included the script, the storyboard, supporting the editor, of course, the location release, actors release. I also helped Michael when it came to getting the location sorted out and organising the instruments, as I knew the right people for that. In the beginning I also got the actors, but they dropped out, and that's when Michael took over from there, and he was very successful within that. I obviously cancelled one of the filming days because I didn't think the weather was right and we didn't have everything that we needed. In the pre-production of the music video, we did have to do the different practices that people in the industry would have to do, like the different location releases to make sure we got permission, actors release, obviously finding actors. We had to do health and safety, which was a huge part of my production, I'd say, because we were under the M11 bridge and we were next to a train line, so there were obviously a lot of rules we had to follow in order to keep ourselves and the actors safe. Aaron was our public relations. He was in charge of promoting our work and making sure that people knew about it, they were kept informed, see behind the scenes, logos, everything like that. He did really well, actually. I think that he may have been able to promote it more, but regarding promotional materials, I think like the materials he did produce to promote but never got around to promoting, he did do well. He set up an Instagram account, he did the logo, he came up with like the name and everything like that, so that was the start that gave our group a name, like a branding, so we were recognised. obviously he wasn't there on the day of filming, so he couldn't film us behind the scenes, but it was an idea to get behind the scenes footage and then make it into a short film. I think that would have been very beneficial, but obviously if somebody isn't free that day but the rest are, we have to film without them. In the promotional materials were principles and practices, so I'm not too sure because obviously I wasn't that involved within the promotional materials. I don't really think any of the group apart from Aaron was, as we had a 5-man group and obviously there were 5 roles, so Aaron kind of took on that role by himself and he was happy with that. He worked quite independently. However, I was always there if he did need any support. Obviously, principles and practices, you need to make sure there's nothing copyright there, that it's original. You need to do the research, you need to make it interesting, but you don't want to make it too over the top, you want to keep it simple. So it's memorable, but if something's too overwhelming, it could put people off, because if it's too confusing, people won't understand it. I wouldn't say that the promotional materials were that effective. I obviously, after we had shown the film within college, I had posted it on a Facebook site as people were very interested when I was filming it, so I thought I'd share it with them. I think that's when we got the most feedback. Like before that, we hadn't got any feedback on it. I think Aaron could have maybe got shots of different stuff we were doing, saying, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, what do you want to see, and everything like that, because that would have given us more ideas to make it more interesting. So in the future, I think that is a way to improve, just to make sure that we're not neglecting the promotion side, because even putting up posters around college, doing that, putting a link on so you can scan it, that means more people would have access to the video if they wanted to, or sharing it amongst more social media platforms. Even asking friends and family about what they think, anything really, it would have just been really helpful. Regarding the communication within our group, so I feel like it was quite good. Every time we were in college, I would sit everyone down, me and Michael would. He would record our minutes of meetings and I would go over what was in my head, what I wanted to do. If they knew of anything that they thought would be good, then we'd go over basically the whole idea and what they should be doing that day. Or if, let's say it was a Friday and we were filming on the Sunday, we'd go over what was going to happen on that day, just so everyone was clear, because even Aaron, he wasn't there, we still want him to be up to date with what we're doing so he doesn't get left behind. But as well as that, let's say we weren't in college, it was half term, we had a group chat on Snapchat and we were all quite vocal on that. If we had problems, they would message me or they would call me up, and I feel like our group did work as a team really well compared to other groups I have been in. I wouldn't really say there were any confrontations, maybe about attendance, but even then it wasn't really a big deal. We still got it done. We didn't let it be a barrier for us. So yeah, I think that was a really big positive for our group. What impact did you have on the final music video product? So I was a director, so obviously I had quite a big impact because it was my idea. I was just there, so I knew what my idea was going to be like from the start, and obviously I was, like I said before, I was quite persistent on what I wanted done, and that's why I cancelled the filming that day, because I wanted it to be perfect. Obviously it didn't turn out perfect, but that's what happens in the industry, and we didn't have a lot of time on our hands anyways. But I will insert some photos, some recorded evidence and everything like that to just to show how I think I've influenced the product. I think it's not only me though. Will did I think I would consider him as an assistant director on this. I knew what I wanted, but he knew how to make it happen. So on the day, I was present, I was there, I was telling people what I wanted to be done, but then he was the technical side of it. What modifications to the original concept were you responsible for? Well, in my original plan, I was going to have fire, and obviously after talking to Michael, that wasn't safe. So obviously we had to change that, which I was fine with. We changed it to using smoke grenades, like the coloured ones, which I thought wasn't as effective. It wasn't the aesthetic that I was looking for, but then it was a good alternative. It was safe in a way. It was safer than the original plan. So, what modifications did you make to the production and video as a result of ongoing feedback? Like I said, we didn't get a lot of feedback. Obviously, after we did, and if I had that information before, I would have made sure that we made time to go out and film more footage like I think we should have. It wouldn't be too difficult, but obviously that's in the past now, so we just need to learn from it. I don't believe that any of the modifications that we made were particularly deliberate. I think it was just a case of things not going as planned, time running out, not being able to do certain things that really modified what the original video was going to be like. But obviously, we're in a college course, we have restrictions, we don't really have a budget, so I feel like by the way things went, we actually did do quite well, because we were able to borrow instruments from people, so we didn't have to buy them or anything. We didn't need permission to film where we did. It was quite smooth sailing. We were able to film in one day. So, from all of the documents that I created for the production, the storyboard was the most helpful to me. I took it there with me on the day of filming, so obviously my drawings were awful, but it just mapped out everything how I wanted it to go, and obviously that helped Elizabeth plan the shots and everything like that. Obviously she didn't do all of them, but that's not the point. Like, if we were to complete all of them, that would be, and still was, the most important piece, because not only did it show it showed me what my idea was like in my head, so I wasn't just thinking about it, I could see it on paper. It showed Elizabeth the different camera shots, what I wanted her to do, as well as a description of everything. So it really helped her as well as me. Don't believe that if we didn't have that storyboard with us on the day, I really don't think it would have been as smooth as it was. It really did give us a clearer vision. And I know that the actors were looking over it at some point, obviously, because it was simple enough for them to understand what they needed to do as well. So it wasn't just me and Elizabeth, it was the whole team. It was Will, as he was assistant director, and he was helping Elizabeth, and then the actors, because obviously they wanted to know what to do, and if we weren't good at explaining it, they could just look at what we've written down or we've drawn. So the next question is, how has your initial research and experimental testing supported you in this music video production? This sounds quite bad, but obviously for task 1, we did the researching of the 7 styles and techniques. I feel like that was definitely more helpful than task 2, which was the history of the music videos. I really don't think that really helped me at all. I was trying to create something that was different, something that wasn't really known. So I wouldn't be wanting to look at old videos and be like, oh, I want to copy that. Because we're supposed to be making an original idea, not... I guess it's okay to get inspiration, but if you watch other music videos, then you're more likely to really mimic them. I thought task 1 was a lot more helpful than task 2. Obviously, task 2 was the pitch, so by then I had already come up with my idea, and I didn't really need supporting anymore. But yes, task 1 gave me a better idea of how to do things, like what looks good, what would fit well with what I was trying to do. Because obviously, as well as researching them, you got to watch them, you saw them, and then I know especially for Will, as he's the editor, and Elizabeth as the camera person, they would be able to use it. So it did take a lot longer than I expected it to do, but if it was helpful in the end, then it was worth it. So the next thing I'm going to talk about will be what I need to improve regarding research and analysis, planning, documentation, and communication within the team. So research and analysis, I think that was quite poor, seeing as I felt like it wasn't necessary. Music videos, obviously I thought task 1 was necessary, but task 2, I know a lot of people didn't think it's necessary. Of course, you needed to do it to pass the task, but yeah, I didn't think it was worth it, so I didn't really put a lot of effort into it. So I know next time I should do deeper research and analysis, as I was also given comments such as I was just being more descriptive than analysing. So obviously that is a downfall on my part. The planning documentation, I think I did that quite well, but I also think it's quite rushed because I did just want to start filming. I wanted to make sure my team had enough time, and after a while there wasn't a lot of documentation to do. So I think the next time I should spend some time at home trying to do it instead of rushing it, and then obviously not completing it to the best of my ability, because if I did that, then it would have helped my team a lot as well as myself. Communication within the team, I think it was quite good. Everyone was comfortable with each other. We got on. Obviously, in college, if anyone had any questions, queries, they needed help with anything, everyone in the team would be up for helping each other. Outside of college, they had my number. We had a Snapchat group chat, so that communication was still there. Obviously, we did have issues with attendance, mine probably being the worst, but I did try and communicate this with my team, and it wasn't just me, but like I said before, it really wasn't an issue. I made sure I had done all of my work, and due to personal reasons, that is why I was taking time off. But how do I intend to improve these areas in the FMP? Well, I've covered research analysis and plan documentation, but communication within the team, that will not be relevant for my FMP, as I am planning on working independently. Gathering feedback during production and edit, like I said before, we didn't get any feedback during the filming, as we were so busy trying to get everything sorted. But obviously our final edit, I posted the video to Facebook, where I did get a lot of comments, which I will put into this dialogue. But as well as that, we obviously showed it in front of all of the media, and we got some good feedback from that. And we're going to reflect upon that so we can use it in the future for the FMP. Who's the audience? It was other media students. I do wish that we did gain more feedback throughout the production, because then maybe we would have been able to make it more interesting, more interesting for the audience. But obviously that's in the past, and we need to learn from that again. But yeah, I think that's about it. So this is my final dialogue for the music video. Thank you. Okay, so this is the dialogue for the music video feedback that we got yesterday after doing the pitch. The first question is, what did the audience find most engaging? And I feel like for that we didn't get a lot of feedback, but in my opinion, we got the most positives about the location. It was very different, quite abstract. Nobody else used the location quite like it, and I think that's what made it effective. It goes with this genre, and the bright colours, it just kind of stood out. One of the things that we got comments against was that so two of our actors switched roles about halfway through, so the drummer became the guitarist and vice versa. We did forget to shoot new footage for this, and that's why we had to use that footage, but people did notice it and they said it was distracting. It was quite obvious. Also the fact that when lip syncing, it wasn't the actor's fault, but the editor didn't sync up the music to the actor's actions well, so you could tell that it was out of time. As the director myself, I wasn't really trying to give off a particular message. It wasn't a narrative, it was just a general rock video. I was trying to keep the general connotations. Obviously, it didn't go to plan. I didn't have all the footage that I wanted in the beginning, but yeah, there wasn't really a message. I was just trying to recreate something, but in a modern way. So yeah, the audience shouldn't have really trying to understand a message, but if they thought that the video did have a meaning, it would probably be different for every individual, like the way they perceive the video. One of the criticisms that we got from one of the tutors was the fact that so the band playing the instruments and everything, that did really represent rock music, but from my pitch I was trying to get something different, not just a rock video, so that was a criticism, that there wasn't quite enough there. Like, we should have had more clips to make it more interesting for the audience, but I think that because of the way we were cutting to the beat and everything like that, the visuals went with the music, because obviously we were matching the visuals to the lyrics or the beat or so on, and the genre of music, I still kept the connotations of rock in there because I wanted it to be recognisable. The majority of the images on the screen, it was basically just the band playing the instruments, obviously in different angles and everything like that. You got close-ups and long shots, but originally there was supposed to be other things going on. Obviously, every so often you can see the flares being let off, but due to not using a gimbal or a Steadicam, something like that, the shots were quite shaky, so we weren't able to use that a lot, which was disappointing. But that was a choice of the camera person. The focus, I think the quality of the shots were really good. Considering that we were only using natural lighting, I think we were really lucky the day that we did film, because it had really good natural lighting where we were. Framing, I think it could be better at points. There's a point where you're just focusing on the drummer and not the guitarist, but then the top of the guitar does get into it, which I did find quite irritating myself, because I was thinking it could have been done so much better, but obviously with the lack of time that we couldn't do everything. So we also got quite a few comments about the creativity of the video. Obviously in the beginning it's supposed to be quite an abstract piece. It wasn't really supposed to make sense. It's supposed to disorientate you. We got nothing of that, I would say. So it wasn't very creative. It is basically just taking the general connotations of rock and redoing them in a modern setting, which obviously wasn't ideal. And I think you could see the way the audience was acting, that it wasn't the most interesting thing in the world. It needed something more to it, some more dynamics, but obviously we know as a group that in the future we need to focus on that. As I have said before, there was no meaning behind the video at all. It was just supposed to be quite disorientating. Obviously, that was the initial plan. It didn't turn out like that. But I think the audience understood this, that it was more of a performative piece than something that's supposed to have a meaning or a storyline. So we didn't get comments about that. But, yeah, regarding the pace and tone, we used cutting to the beat as the main effect, I would say. Obviously, the song that we chose had quite a heavy beat to it, so I think this worked quite well, and the audience did agree with that. It matched, like the beat was changing at the right times. I wouldn't say that in other terms that we used a lot of special effects or transitions. It's mostly just like clean cuts from shot to shot. I think the most special effect really that we used would be when you see a scene where you can see a silhouette of a guy clapping and you can see the band behind that. But obviously I wasn't the biggest fan of that effect. I just thought it looked like the laptop was turning off, in my opinion, but obviously that was a decision of the editor and I wanted everyone to have their opinion on what should go on. So obviously we did need some more stuff to go in within the video. Colouring, I'm not 100% sure if we changed the settings on the video when it came to editing, as obviously he did the majority of it at home. But you can see, and there was a comment made about this, that in some videos it looks like some shots are faster or slower. Like the longest shots look slower than the ones closer up, which obviously it was supposed to be quite a fast-paced, kind of moving song, but it didn't turn out that way. So yeah. Regarding the music rhythm and lyrics into the music, as it was mentioned when we were presenting, the lip syncing didn't match up to what the artist was saying, and obviously that was an error during editing, as I know that the actors were doing it properly. I know they were singing, but it just wasn't matched up correctly, so that in the future would be something to work on. But I'm not going to focus on that too much, because obviously regarding the musical rhythm, there was quite I would say that this one has quite a beat to it, it's quite a heavy beat to it. So yeah, it was quite easy to match up what we wanted to do. So like we saying, we were cutting to the beat, so when they were clapping, the actors, to match the beat, it was easy to match up, because obviously it was quite obvious compared to the lyrics. Another thing that we got criticised upon was the fact that the actors didn't actually know how to play the instruments. Obviously, I didn't think this would be an issue, as we weren't using the sound. At the time of recording, they were playing the instruments at the beginning, but then I think it was just distracting, the noise, obviously, because it didn't sound good. I do understand this, and it was said that we should have got either real actors or real musicians to do it, but I decided to go against this because of the fact that to get real musicians, real actors, it could be more difficult, and obviously we had a small time period that we could actually complete this within, so I didn't want to complicate it any more than it had to be. Consistency and sound levels of the audio. So I downloaded the audio off of the internet. Obviously, I wanted to get the best quality. We didn't add any other sounds into it after, so I think we just left the sound really. We dragged it onto Premiere Pro and we left it there. So I would say that the consistency was pretty much good, like from when the real people edited it way back when to now. I think it's fine. Obviously, maybe Will could have done it so you control the left speakers and the right speakers, but I don't think that was a major problem. Nobody mentioned anything about the sound, whereas they did in other productions. So I wouldn't say that we really had promotional materials within the music video. Everything we used was quite basic. So before, I had planned to use a gym, and obviously they would have had credit towards them and they would have been promoted, and that was I think it's One Fitness in Henham, but they pulled out last minute, therefore we couldn't use that. Apart from that, we didn't have a lot of props. We had the drum kit, we had the guitar, and we had the locations, and that was about it, so there wasn't really a lot to promote. But again, I feel like that was the same with a lot of other videos. Like, they weren't really focusing on promotion, which would have been meaning as in music videos it is a lot of promotion, whether it's Apple or Beats or something like that. The consistency of promotional materials within the team, like whether or not there was an obvious team branding. Obviously, at the beginning of the film, we presented our team name, which was Break a Leg Productions, and at the end we had credits, which obviously gave credit to everyone who did take part in the productions. However, apart from that, I wouldn't really say that we did have an obvious team branding. I don't think a logo was included. Was it Michael?
Yeah.
Was it?
Aaron made one.
Oh yeah, Aaron's break a leg thing. But yeah, apart from that, you've got the logo and you've got the names and the name of the production group. Apart from that, I wouldn't really say there was a strong team branding. I think that's something that could have been worked upon as well. I think with Aaron, he could have promoted the whole thing a lot better, but obviously he was in charge of that, and I can give my advice as much as I want, but it depends whether or not he agrees with it. So I think that was one of the problems. What would you do to improve the final project and my promotional materials? Well, I would actually include more promotional materials, maybe pretend we've got a sponsor like Samsung or something, to make it more professional, as normal music videos do normally have sponsors. And to improve the final product, obviously have the lip syncing synced to the music, have the actors actually play the instruments, whether or not it sounds good at the time, like the sound gets taken out at the end, so obviously then it makes it look more real. But like, I think the biggest thing that I would improve would be making sure we have all the footage we need to make it more interesting and actually achieve what I was trying to get at the beginning. I feel like from this, the biggest thing that has come from it is I think I've got a tiny bit better at working with groups. Not a lot, because I still don't compromise on a lot of things. But from that, I've learned that I can't work in groups. Therefore, we'll be working independently on the FMP. And for the FMP, I'll just make sure I am planning everything to the dot, making sure I have time for everything, just so it turns out the way I want to. I need to make sure that research is done and everything like that. And I will be getting opinions off of people throughout the process and not just the end of it. Because obviously, at the end of it, you can't make any changes because it's done. Whereas if you're getting it throughout, then you can make the changes to make it better. But apart from that, that is it.